Nagas, Kindras, and the guardian of the eight waters to the Chitrakuta. Guardian of the quarter folk to the Chitrakuta on that occasion. Shri Rama made obeisance to them all, and the gods were glad to obtain the reward of their eyes. Raining flowers, the heavenly host exclaimed, Lord, we feel secure today. With great supplications, they describe their terrible woes and return joyfully to their several abodes. Hermits streamed in as they heard the news that Shri Rama, the delighted Prabhu, had taken up his abode at Chitrakuta. The moon of the solar rays felt protest when he saw the holy company coming with a cheerful countenance. The hermits pressed Shri Rama, the chief of Raghuline, to their bosoms and invoked their blessings on him, just in order to see them come true. As they gazed on the beauty of Sita, Lakshmana, Shri Sumitra's sons, and Rama, they accounted all their spiritual practices fully rewarded. After paying them due honor, the Lord dismissed the holy throng and they practiced yoga, contemplation, japa, muttering of prayers and austerities and performed sacrifices unmolested their own retreat. When the Kolas and Bhilas got this news, they felt as delighted as though the nine heavenly treasures of Kubera had found their ways to their own house. With cups of leaves full of bulbs, roots, and fruit, they sailed forth as pauper to gather gold as a spoil. Such of them as had already seen the two brothers were cautioned about them by others who proceeded along the same road. Describing and hearing the Sri Rama's beauty, they all came and beheld the Lord of Raghus. Placing their offering before the Lord, they greeted him and regarded him with deep affection. They stood here and there as so many painted figures, thrilling all over with tears streaming from their eyes. Sri Rama perceived that they were all overwhelmed with emotions and addressing kind words to them, treated them all with honors, while they in their turns greeted the Lord again and with joy and promise spoke to him in polite terms. Having seen your feet, O Lord, we all feel secure now. Our good luck is responsible for your visit to this place, O Lord of the Ayodhya. Blessed is the land, forest, path, and hills where you have planted your foot, my Lord. Fortunate are the birds and beasts of the forest, whose life has been crowned by your sight, and lucky are we all along with our family in that we have been able to feast our eyes on your beauty. You have chosen an excellent spot whereon to take up your abode. You will be comfortable here during all the seasons. We will render all sort of services to you, keeping away elephants and the lions, serpents and the tigers. The dreadly forest hills, caves and the ravines have all been explored by us foot by foot, O Lord. We will take you for hunting to the different hunts of the games and will show you lakes and the springs and other reservoir of water. We and our people are your servants, therefore do not hesitate to command us, O Lord. The same gracious Lord whose Vedic text failed to describe and the mind of the hermit cannot reach, listen to the words of the Bhila even as the father listened to the words of his children. Love alone attracts Sri Rama. Let those who are curious take note of it. Sri Rama then gratified all the foresters by addressing to them gentle words, sweetened by love. Dismissed by him, they bowed their head to him and departed. And discussing the virtues of the Lord, they returned to their respective homes. In this way, Sita and the two brothers lived in the forest, delighting the gods and hermit. Even since the Lord of Raghu came and looked up his abode there, the forest became a fountain of blessing. Trees of the various kind blossoms and the boar fruits and lovely creepers that coiled about them formed an excellent canopy. They were all naturally beautiful like the tree of the heaven. It seemed as if the latter had abandoned the celestial grove and migrated to the spot. Sting of bees made an exceedingly sweet humming sounds and the delightful breeze became soft, cool and fragrant. The blue jay, cuckoo, parrot, chatkas, chakravakas, chakoras and other birds delighted the ears and ravaged the soul with the varied note. Elephants, lions, monkeys, boars, and deers all sported together free from enmity. Herds of deer were enraptured when they beheld the beauty of Sri Rama's roaming about in the search of prey. All the forests of the god existing in the universe were filled with envy at the sight of Sri Rama's forest. The heavenly river Ganga, Saraswati, the sun-born Yamuna, Narmada, the daughter of the Mount Makela, The blessed Godavari and the various other lakes, seas, streams, and the rivers all extol the Mandakini. The eastern and the western hill from and behind which the sun is believed to emerge and disappears every morning and evening. Mount Kailasha, the abode of Lord Shiva, Mandara, Meru, all abode of gods, and the mountains like the Himalaya, all saying praises of the Chitrakuta. Glad was the deity presiding over the Vindhya range, whose delight was more than a heart could contain. To think that to had won such great renown without much exertion. Blessed and full of merit are all the birds and deers, creepers, trees, and the various species of the herbage of the Chitrakuta. So declare the god day and night. Having beheld the chief of Raghuline, those who had eyes attained the end of their life and were rid of the sorrow, whereas inanimated object rejoiced at the touch of the very dust of his feet and become eligible to attain the highest state blessedness. The forest and hill where the ocean of bliss Shri Rama took up his abode were naturally lovely, auspicious, and the holiest of the holy. How could it be possible to glorify them? The exquisite beauty of the forest where Sita, Lakshmana, and Shri Rama came and settled, taking leave of the ocean of the milk and bidding adieu to Ayodhya, could not be described even by the 100,000 Sheshas, each with 100,000 pairs of the tongue. How then can I describe it at some length any more than a tortoise living in the puddle can lift Mount Mandara? Lakshmana waited upon Shri Rama's in thoughts, words, and deed, and an amiability and devotion more than one could tell. Gazing on the feet of Sita and Shri Rama, every moment and occasion of their love for him, Lakshmana never recalled, even in a dream, his younger brother Shatrugana, father, mother, or even his home. In Shri Rama's company, Sita lived a happy life, forgetting her town, Ayodhya, family, and home. Ever watching the moonlight face of her beloved lord, she was extremely glad, like a young of the Chakora birds, finding her lord's affection grow from day to day. She remained happy as a Chakraka birds during the day. Her mind was so in arms of Shri Rama's feet that the forest appears to her as a dear as a thousand Ayodhya. Dear was the heart of leaf in the company of her most beloved lord, while fawn and the birds constitutes her beloved family. The holy hermits appear to her as her own father-in-law and their spouse, says as her mother-in-law, while her diet consisting of bulbs, roots, and fruits tasted like ambrosia. Shared with her spouse, even the lovely litter of the leaves delighted her as hundred of the Cupid's own beds. Can the charm of the senses enjoyment even enchant her whose very look confers the sovereignty of his sphere? Fixing their thoughts on Sri Rama, his devotees spurn the pleasure of sense as worth no more than a piece of the straw. It is no wonder then in the case of the Sita, Sri Rama's beloved consort and mother of the universe, the Lord of Raghu would do and say only that which would please Sita and the Lakshmana. He would narrate old legends in the story to which Lakshmana and Sita would listen with great delight. Every time Sri Rama thought of the Ayodhya, his eyes filled with the tears. The gracious Lord becomes sad when he recalled his father and mother, his family and the brother, and particularly the affection, amiability, and devotion of the Bharata. That he recovered himself when he realized that the time was unpropitious. Perceiving this, Sita and the Lakshmana felt distress, even as a shadow of a man behaved just like him. When he saw the condition of his beloved consort and his brother Lakshmana, the self-possessed and the compassionate Rama, the director of Raghu and the suitor of his devotees' heart, began to narrate some sacred legends. Hearing which Lakshmana and Sita felt relieved. Accompanied by Lakshmana and Sita, Sri Rama shone his hut of the leaves, even as Indra, who dwelt in Amravati with his spouse Sachi and his son Jayanta. The Lord looked after Sita and the Lakshmana in the same way as the eyelid protects the eyeballs, while Lakshmana in his turn waited upon Sita and the Sri Rama, the hero of the Raghu race, just as a fool who identifies himself with his body, trained his own trained his own body, trained his own Shri Ramayana, who was trained his own body in this way. The Lord, who was as friendly to the birds and fond as to the gods and ascetic, lived happily to the forest. Thus have I told the delightful story of the Lord looked after Sita and the Lakshmana in the same way. The eyelid protected the Lord look after Sita and Lakshmana in the the Lord looked after Sita and Lakshmana in the same way as the eyelid protect the eyeball. While Lakshmana in his turn waited upon Sita and the Shri Rama, the hero of Raghuvesh, such as a fool who identifies himself with his body, tends his own body. In this way, the Lord, who was as friendly to birds and fawn as to gods and ascetics, lived happily in the forest. Thus have I told the delightful story of Shri Rama's journey to the woods. Now hear how Sumantra reached Ayodhya. When the Nishada chief returned after escorting the Lord, saw the ministers Sumantra with the carrot. The minister was distressed to see the Nishada chief. Word failed to describe the agony which he felt at the moment. Crying out Rama, Rama, Sita, Lakshmana, the he Sumantra dropped on the ground utterly helpless. While the horses kept looking on the south and neighed, they were as restless as a bird shorn of their wings. They would neither eat grass nor drink water, while their eyes kept shedding tears. The whole party of Nishada was distressed to see the horse of the Shri Rama, the chief of Raghu line. Then recovering himself, the Nishada said, Sumantra, cease sorrowing now. You are the man of wisdom and knower of the highest truth. Therefore, compose yourself, realizing that fate is unpropitious to you. Narrating various regions in soft accents, he took him by the force and seated him in the carrot. But overpowered by grief, he could not drive the carrot. The agony of separation from Rama, the chief of Raghuline, was severe in his heart. The horse would not move along the road. They were getting fidgetly. It seemed as the wild animal has been caught and put in harness. They would topple down and turn to look behind, torn away from the Rama and smarting with the deep anguish. If anyone mentioned the name of Rama, Lakshmana and Sita, Jinka's daughter, they would start neighing and regarded him with love. How could anyone describe the anguish of separation of the horse felt? They were as restless as a snake robbed of its gems. The Nishada was overcome with grief as if he beheld the ministers and his horses. As he beheld the ministers and his horses, the Nishada, overcome with grief, beheld the ministers, and he then called the four trusted troops and sent them with a carrot Sumantra. Seeing off the carrot, Goha returned. The agony of his separation was too deep for the words, and the Nishada drove of the Ayodhya, plugged in the sorrow every moment. Agitated and stricken with grief, Sumantra laminated, Accused is the life without the hero of the Raghurace. The wretched body will not survive in the long run. But what a pity it did not earn fame by perishing at the same time of its parting of the hero of the Raghurace. This life has become sins of the infamy and sin. I sink of the infamy and sin, sink of the infamy and sin. I wonder what prevented it from the departing us. This vile soul has missed its chance. Oh, that my heart does not break in twain even now. Wrinkling his hands and beating his head, he rued his lot like a miser who has lost his hordes of the riches. It seemed as if after assuming the role of and posing as an eminent hero, a great warrior had taken to flight. The minister gave himself up to the grief like a discreet Brahmins of the noble descent who thought through well versed in the Vedas and esteemed by the various has been deluded into the drinking. The minister felt in his heart agony as terrible as theirs of the virtuous and the discreet lady of the high birth who is devoted to her lord's thought, words and deed, and who is compelled by the evil destiny to live apart from her husband. His eyes were full of tears and lacking in vision. His ears deep and his mind was agitated and confused. Nay, his lips were getting dry and his tongue had cleaved to the palate. Yet his life breath did not depart. The term of exile serving as door to prevent his departure from his heart. He had turned pale and repealed the sight, as if he had murdered his own father and the mother. Great was the despondency which preys upon his mind as a result of the loss he had just suffered. He looked like a sinner mourning while on his ways to the abode of the dead. What failed him, and he lamented within himself, what shall I see on reaching Ayodhya? Whosoever shall find the carrot void of the Rama will shun my sight. When he agitated citizen reigned to make inquiry of me, I shall answer them all with a heavy load on my heart. When all the helpless and the afflicted mothers question me, good God, what shall I say to them? When Lakshmana's mother Sumantra put questions to me, what glad tidings shall I convey to her? And when Rama's mother Kaushalya come running like a cow that has recently born a calf and has her thoughts fixed on it, the only answer I can make to her questions will be Rama's, Lakshmana and the Sita's, Nishada's daughters have left for the woods. Whosoever caution me must be answered. This is the treat I shall having on reaching Ayodhya. Again, when the king, who is oppressed by the grief and whose life hangs on the Rama, put cautions to me, which was with what face shall I tell him in reply that having safely escorted the prince I have come back. The moment he hears the news of the Lakshmana, Sita and the Rama, the king will drop his body like a piece of the straw. The swampy ground of my heart like a swampy ground did not crack even though the moisture in the shape of my most beloved Rama has felt. From this I concluded that in this very frame God has endowed me with this body fit from suffering the torture of the hell. With Sumantra was thus lamenting on the way his chariot presently reached the bank of the Tamsa river. He politely dismissed the Nishada who fell at his feet and returned with the heart stricken with grief. The minister hesitated to enter the city as if he had murdered his own preceptor, killed a Brahman or butchered a cow. He passed the day sitting under a tree and found his opportunity only when it was dusk. He entered Ayodhya in the dark and slunk into the palace, leaving the chariot at the gate. All who heard the news flocked to the entrance to the royal palace to see the chariot. When they recognized the chariot and found the horse restless with the body wasting away as hail in the sun, the citizens, both men and women, were so distressed as fish when the water runs short. The moment they heard of the dismissed arrival of the whole Gynecum was restless. To him the palace looked as dreary as though it were an abode of spirit. In deep agony, all the queen cautions him, but no reply came from him. His voice failed him, his ears could not hear, nor could his eyes see. He asked whomsoever he met, "Tell me, where is the king?" Seeing his confusion, the maid servant conducted him to Kaushalya's apartment. Arriving there, Sumantra found the king as pale, as lustreless as a moon without the nectar. Without a seat, conch, or ornaments, he lay on the ground in the most wretched conditions. Having a sigh, he lamented even as Yayati when he had fallen from the abode of God. With his heart bursting with the grief every moment, he looked like Sampati who had dropped from the heaven on account of his wings having been inside. That great love of the Rama cried, "Rama, Rama," and again Rama, Lakshmana, and Sita. The ministers, on seeing the king, exclaimed salutatory words, Jaya Jiva, and made obeisance to him by failing of protest on the ground. The moment he heard this, the king rose in bewilderment and said, "Tell me, Sumantra, where is Rama?" The king pressed Sumantra to his bosom as if a dying man had laid hold of some support. Seating him affectionately by his sides and with his eyes full of tears, the king asked him, "Appraise me of Rama's welfare, O loving friend. Where are Rama, the lord of the Raghus, Lakshmana, and the Vidya's daughter Sita? Have you brought them back, or have they left for the woods?" At these words, tears rushed to the minister's eyes. Overwhelmed with grief, the king asked again, "Tell me the news about Sita, Rama, and Lakshmana." Recalling again and again Shri Rama's beauty, virtue, amiability, and temperament, the king sorrowed within himself, proclaiming my intention to install him as a regent and exile him to the wood. But the news neither delighted his soul nor grieved it. But my life did not depart, even though I had to part from such a son. Who can be such a great sinner as I? Take me, my friend, to the place where Rama, Lakshmana, and Sita are. If not, I sincerely tell you, my life is going to depart very soon. Again and again the king asked the minister, "Communicate to me the news of my most beloved son. Quickly contrive, my friend, some means whereby you may be able to bring up before my eyes Rama, Lakshmana, and Sita." Recovering himself, the minister gently replied, "Your Majesty's learned eyes, you are the victor of the brave and the courageous, my lord, and have always attended assemblies of the holy men. Birth and death, all painful and the pleasurable experiences, loss and gain, union and separation from friends, all these, my lord, take place under the unalterable laws of the time and destiny, like the succession of the night and day. Who rejoices in prosperity and mourn in adversity, while the wise account both alike. Therefore, exercising your mature judgment, take up courage and cease sorrowing, O friends of all." Their first halt was made by the side of the Tamsa, and next on the bank of the celestial river Ganga. Having bathed and drunk water, Sita and the two brothers remained without food that day. The Nishada showed great hospitality, and the party spent that night in the village of Singaraura. At daybreak they sent for the milk and banyan tree, and the two brothers coiled up their matted hairs in the shape of the crown. Then Rama's friend Guha called for the bed, and after helping Sita to board it, Shri Rama followed suit. Lakshmana placed on it, and in an ordinary way the two bows and the quirt, and himself boarded the boat on the receiving the Lord's command. Seeing my distress, the hero from grace summoned up courage and addressed me in the sweetest and sire, convey my obeisance to dear father, and clasped his lotus feet again and again. Then falling at his feet, submit to him. Thus, Father, be not worried on my account. By your grace and the goodwill, and as a reward of your meritorious acts, my journey to and sojourn in the woods will be the happy and full of the blessings. By your grace, dear Father, I shall have all sorts of the comforts on my journey, and having obeyed your command, shall come back safe to behold your lotus feet once more. They, consoling all my mothers, fall at their feet again and again, and with profuse entreaties make every effort, says Tulsidas, to see that the Lord of Ayodhya, my father, passed his days happily. Clasping my preceptor's lotus feet again and again, give him my message. Pray, so exhort the Lord of Ayodhya that he may no longer grieve on my account. Humbly approaching all the citizens and all my people, convey to them my submissions. He alone is my friend in every way, who ensures the king's happiness. Again, when Brahma Bharta come, give him my message. Abandon not the path of the restitute on assuming the office of the regent. Restitute means restitute. Restitute means morally correct behavior or thinking rightness. Morally correct behavior, morally correct behavior, morally correct behavior, morally correct behavior on assuming the office of the regent. Restitute. Regent means the person appointed administers the estate because the minor. Restitute. Regents, cherish your subjects in thoughts, words, and deed, and serve your mothers, treating them all alike. Again, brother deed. Brother, vindicate your brotherliness till the last day by serving our parents and the kinsmen. And last but not the least, look after the king in such a way that he may never sorrow on my account. Here Lakshmana interposed some harsh words, but the Rama checked him and then adjured me by himself again and again. Make no mention, dear father, of the Lakshmana's childishness. Sending her greeting, Sita opened her lips to say something, but was overwhelmed with emotion. Her voice failed, her eyes filled with the tears, and a thrill ran through her body. At this moment, in response to hint from the chief of the Raghu, the boatsman propelled the boat towards the opposite bank. So departed the crown of the Raghu race, while I stood looking on with a heavy load on my heart. How am I to disguise my own anguish in that I came back alive bearing Rama's message? At this stage, Sumantra's speech failed him. Overpowered as he was by the grief and remorse due to separation from Shri Rama, no sooner had he heard the narrator's speech than the king dropped to the ground, his heart burning with deep anguish. His mind being unhinged by the excessive infatuation, he tossed about like a fish that has been inebriated by suckling the form of the early rainwater with the intoxicated to the fish. All the queens wailed and wept. How can their great misfortune be described? At the sum of their veiled sorrow itself was sorrowful, and endurance could no longer endure. Ayodhya was in great torment at the sound of the outlay in the royal Gynecum. It seemed as a cruel thunderbolt had fallen at night on the larger habitants of the birth. The live breath of the king had now stuck in the throat. He felt uneasy like a serpent robbed of its gem. All his senses were blighted as a cluster of the lotuses in the lake that has been left without water. When Kaushalya saw the king's witherness and blasted, she concluded in her mind that the sun of the solar race was about to set. Summoning up courage, therefore, Shri Rama's mother spoke what appropriate to the occasion. Ponder in your heart, my lord, and reflect that separation from Rama is a vast ocean. You are the helmsman and the Ayodhya, the bark which has been boated by our near and dear ones as its passenger. We can hope to reach a shore only if you have patience. If not, the whole family will be drowned. If you take to the heart this sincere entreaty of mine, my beloved lord, we are sure to see Rama, Lakshmana, and Sita again. Hearing these soft words of his beloved queen, the king opened his eyes and looked upon like a writhing wretch which has been sprinkled with the cold water. Recovering himself, the king got up and sat down. Tell me, Sumantra, where is my gracious Rama? Where is Lakshmana? Where is my loving Rama? Where is my beloved daughter-in-law Videhi? The restless monarch wailed in many ways. The night seems to him like an age, and he felt as though it would never end. He was remained on the blind hermit curse, and he narrated the whole story to Kaushalya. He was filled with agony as he related the circumstances. Few in the hope of the surviving without Rama. What shall I gain by pressing this body which has failed to keep my bow of the love? O delighter of the Raghu, who are dear to me as life, already I have lived too long without you. Janka's daughter and Lakshmana, a chief of the Raghu line, who gladdened the loving heart of your father, as a rain cloud delights the Chatka birds, crying Rama and the Rama again Rama and yet again Rama Rama Rama. The king cast off his body in his agony of separation from the chief of Raghu line and ascended to the abode of gods. Uh, it was King Dasharatha who reaped the reward both of his life and death. His untarnished fame spread through a number of universes. As long as he lived, he gazed on the Shri Rama's moon-like countenance and got glory to his death by making the separation from Shri Rama his excuse for it. Stricken with grief, all the queen wept and praised his comeliness of the form, amiable manner, bodily might, and the majesty. They lamented in varieties of ways, throwing themselves upon the ground again and again. Men servant and a maid servant alike wailed in anguish, and there was weeping in every house throughout the day. Today has set the sun of the solar rays, the perfection of brightness, the repository of the beauty and the virtue. Everyone abused Kaikeyi, who had robbed the world of its very eyes. In this way they wailed till the close of the night, and all the great and enlightened hermits arrived. Then the sage Vashishta narrated a number of legends befitting the occasions and dispersed the gloom that hung over them all by the light of his wisdom. Nessay caused a boat to be filled with oils and had the king's body placed in it to guard against decomposition. He then summoned envoys and spoke to them thus: "Run quickly and go to the Bhartas, but break not the news about the king to anyone at any place. Approaching Bhartas, tell him only this much: the preceptor has sent for you two brothers." Hearing the Sage's orders, the countries rushed along with a speed that would put excellent steed to the shame. Ever since things began to take a vicious turn, the Ayodhya evil omens occurs before Bharata. He saw the fearful dream at night and walking in daggers and all sorts of unpleasant speculations. He would perform consecration slaughter over Bhagwan Shiva in various ways, in invoking the great Lord in his heart, begged of the welfare of his parents, family, and half brothers. While Bharata was thus passing in anxious times, the courier arrived, and hearing the Guru's commands, he proceeded with an invocation to the Lord Ganesha. Urging the horse to run as fast as the wind, he went on the journey, crossing difficult streams and the forest. There was such a great anxiety in his heart that nothing would please him. He thought to himself, "Would that I could fly home." Every movement hung heavy like an ear. In this way, Bharata drew near to the city. Evil omens occurred to him as he entered the city. Crows cawed in the ominous way and undesirable places. Donkeys and jackals gave a cry that forebode evil and which pierced Bhartas to the heart as it listened to it. Lakes and rivers, groves and the gardens has lost their charms, while the city was a particularly dismal look. Birds and the fawns, horses and the elephants were too rash to look at, undone by the fell disease of the separation from the Rama. The people of the city, both men and women, were extremely miserable, as though all of them had lost everything they had in their possession. The citizens made him by spokes, not a word. They made obeisance and quietly passed on. Bharata too could not inquire after their welfare, his mind being obsessed with fear and grief. The bazaars and the street repeat the sight as though a wild conflagration had broken out the city on all sides. Kaikeyi, who was a solar rays what the moon is to the lotuses, was rejoiced to hear her son's approach. Preparing lights for waving round his head, she sprang up, and the rain glared at the heart, and meeting him at the very door, conducted him into her apartment. Bharata saw with wonders that while the household bore a rash appearance like a bed of the lotuses blasted by the frost, Kaikeyi was as happy as Bhila woman who had set a whole forest ablaze. Seeing her son melancholy and the depressed in spirit, she asked him, "Is all well in my mother's house?" Bharata assured her that everything was well, and then inquired after the health and the welfare of his own family. "Tell me, where is my father's and where all mothers, and where is my Sita and my beloved brothers Shri Rama and the Lakshmana?" On hearing her son's affectionate words, the sinful woman brought crocodile tears in her eyes and spoke words that pierced his ears and soul as so many shafts. "I have accomplished everything for you, my son, and poor Mantra has been of the great help for me. Only God has merited merited our plan a little before they could be completed. The king has departed to the Indra's paradise." As soon as he heard this, Bharata was overcome with grief as an elephant who is terrified at the roar of a lion. Crying, "Fathers, fathers, are my fathers!" he fell to the ground, much agitated. "I could not see you before you left, nor did you, my father, entrust me to the care of the Shri Rama." Then, collecting himself, he got up with some efforts and said, "Tell me, mother, the cause of my father's dismiss." Hearing the words of her son, she replied as one who had cut a vital part and inserted poison into it. With a glad heart, the cruel and the wicked woman recounted from the very beginning all that she has done. Hearing of the Shri Rama's exile to the forest, Bharata forgot his father's death, and realizing in his heart that he was at the root of his, remained mute and stupefied. Observing his son's distress, she comforted him like one who applied salt to a burn. The king was, "Son, my son is not fit for lamentation. He not only reaped the rich harvest of the merits and renown, but enjoyed life also. During his lifetime, he obtained all the rewards of the human existence, and in the end ascends to the abode of the Indra, the Lord of Immortals. Wandering thus, ceased sorrowing and ruled the kingdom with all its limbs, such as the army, the exchequers, the ministers, and so on." The princess was utterly dismissed to hear these words, as through a feasting sore had been touched by the live coal. Recovering himself, he heaved a deep sigh and said, "O woman, you have brought complete ruin to our family. If you bore such deep malice, why did you not kill me as soon as I was born? Cutting down the tree, you have watered a leaf, and you have drained the pond for keeping the fish alive. Charming was descended from the sun god with King Dasharatha for my father, and Rama and Lakshmana for my brothers. I have had your mother for my mother. One is the powerless against the providence. The moment, O malicious woman, you contrive the evil design in your mind, how is it your heart did not break into the pieces? While asking to the boon, did you conscience pinch you? Conscience pinch you? Your tongue. Conscience means that a person's moral sense or right or wrong viewed and acting guide of the behavior. Guide of the conscience. A person's moral sense of right or wrong is called conscience. A person's moral conduct of the right and wrong is called the conscience. The what is right and wrong? Conscience. A person's moral sense of the right and wrong is called the conscience. A person's moral conduct of the right and wrong viewed as acting guide of one's behavior. With acting as a guide of the one's behavior, as a guide of the one's behavior. जैसे what is right and wrong is called the conscience. As an act of writing right and pinch you, conscience pinch you. And your tongue did faster, nor did your mouth become free of maggot. Tongue, how did the king? Your tongue did faster, nor of maggot. How did the king trust you? Surely God must have robbed him of the sense of the evening of his death. Even the creators has not been able to know the working of the woman's heart, the repository of all deceit, sin, and vice. Simple, amiable, and pious as the king was, how could he know the nature of the woman? What living creature in this world to whom the Lord of Rama is not dear as life itself? Yet even the Rama appeared to you as a great enemy. Tell me the truth, therefore, to what species do you belong? Whatever you may be, you had better bid up your face with ink, and leaving my presence, remove the someplace out of my sight. Nay, God has created me out of the womb, Kekai hostile to Rama, who is there so sinful as myself. In vain, therefore, do I taunt you. And Shatrugna heard the mother Kakai's weakness. He burned all over with rage, but there was no help. That very moment came the humpback mantra, clad in the variety of rich costumes and adorned with the various ornaments. The very sight of that woman filled Lakshmana's younger brother with anger, and though clarified butter had been poured into the fire, springing forward, he kicked her with such a steady aim at the hump that she fell flat on her face and screamed aloud. Her hump was smashed, her head split, and her teeth broken, and her mouth emitted blood. Ah, my God, what harm have I done? Surely this is an ill recompense of my service. Hearing this and seeing her vile from head to foot, Shatrugna, the slayer of the foes, seized her by her head or her head and began to drag her till the merciful Bharta recused her. The two brothers then called on Mother Kaushalya in sordid attire, pale, agitated, and oppressed with woes, and with a wasted frame. She looked like a lovely celestial peep of the gold, blasted by frost of the forest. When Mother Kaushalya saw Bharta, she sprang up and ran to meet him, but she felt giddy and dropped unconscious on the ground. Bharta was deeply moved to see her plight and threw himself at her feet, forgetting the condition of his own body. Mother, show me my father. Where is Sita and the two brothers Shri Ram and Lakshmana? Why was Kaikeyi born into this world at all? And if born, why did she not remain barren instead of bearing me? A blot on my family, a very sin of the infamy and the enemy of the near and the dear ones, who in this three spheres is so rash as I, on whose account, mother, you have been reduced to such a plight. My father is in heaven, and Shri Rama, the chief of Raghunath, is in the wood. It is I who, like a shooting star, am responsible for the word of a shooting star. Shooting means the process of discharging and ranged weapon, discharging a ranged weapon, shooting stars, responsible for who like a shooting star. Woe be to me, who have proved to be the to my family a very fire among the bamboos, and victim of the terrible agony, suffering and suffering and the censure. On hearing censure means censure, fate for the censure means express severe disapproval, severe disapproval, especially formal statement, suffering and share, so disapproval, censure and censure, agony, censure, disapproval. On hearing Bharta's tender words, Kaushalya rose with a renewed force and lifting him clasped into his bosom while tears streamed from her eyes. Clueless by the nature, Mother Kaushalya pressed him to her bosoms with utmost affection as though Shri Rama himself had come back. She then embraced Lakshmana's younger brother Shatrugna. Her heart was too full of grief and the love. Everyone who saw her loving disposition said, Rama's mother, that she is no wonder that she should be so loving. The mother seated Bharta in her lap and wiping away his tears spoke to him in soothing words. I adjure you, my child, to compose yourself even now, knowing his to be an unpropitious time. Sorrow no more. Take not to heart Take not to heart the loss we have sustained and feel no remorse for it, remembering that the course of the time and fate is unalterable. Do not blame anyone, my son. It is Providence that has turned hostile to me in every way, and when He makes me survive even under such trying circumstances, who know what may be His pleasure and regard to me even now. At his father's behest, dear child, the hero of Raghu line discarded his ornaments and princely appearance and put on the hermit's dress, consisting of bark of the tree, without either sorrow or exclusions. With a cheerful countenance and without either joy or anger, he comforted all in every way and proceeded to the forest. Hearing this, Sita followed him and would not stay, devoted as she was to the Rama's feet. Lakshmana also, when he heard this, sprang up and accompanied them. He would not be left behind, even though the Lord of Raghu tried his best to detain him. The Lord of Raghu then bowed his head to all and departed with Sita and his younger brother Lakshmana. So Rama, Lakshmana and Sita left for the wood. Whereas I neither accompanied them nor sent my soul after them, the leaving my body here. All this happens before these eyes, and yet this rash soul did not take leave of the body. I am not ashamed of my love to think that a son like Rama should have a mother like me. The king knew well how to live and how to die, whereas my heart is 100 times harder than adamant. Hearing Kaushalya's word, Bharata and the whole Dainikam wailed in distress. The king's palace seems the very abode of sorrow. Much agitated, the two brothers Bharata and Shatrugna loudly lamentated, and Kaushalya clasped them to her bosoms. She comforted Bharata in many ways and tendered words of the wisdom to him. Bharata too in his turn consoles all his mothers, narrating legends from the Puranas and Vedas. Joining both his palms, he addressed them in clueless, innocent, simple and the charming words. The sin attaching to the murder of one's mother's, father's or son, and to act as setting fire in the common of the village of the Brahmins, and those incurred by slaying a woman or child, and the administrating poison to the friends or a monarch, they all the major and the minor sins of the thoughts, words and deeds that have been enumerated by the seers, let all such sins be mine. If my mother's this plot has my concurrence, may Providence award me the fate of those who, forsaking the feet of the Shri and Lord Shiva, worshipping frightful ghosts. If mothers I have complicity in this plot, If I have complicity means the fact of condition being involved in other and unlawful moral complicity in this plot. If mother, all this has my approval, let me share the terrible fate of those who sell the Vedas, exploit their piety, the are given to the backbiting and expose other sins, who are deceitful, wicked, quarrelsome, and inaccessible, who revile the Vedas and are hostile to the words, they who are greedy and lascivious and behave as a rapist, serious do, and who cast their eyes on other wealth and other wives. Nay, mother, if I ever knew the secrets, may Lord Shiva allot me the fate of those rash who love not the company of the virtuous, who have rejected the path of leading to the God realization, who worship not Shri Hari even though blessed with a human form, and take no delight in the glory of Shri Rama, Shri Hari and the Lord Shiva, who has abandoned the path of the Vedas and follow the contrary way, and who are imposed and deceive the world by assuming false appearance. Hearing Bharta's truthful, artless, and sincere words, Mother Kaushalya said, "You, my dear child, have always been beloved Rama in thoughts, words, and deed. Rama is dearer to you than your own life, and likewise you are dearer to the Lord of Raghu than his own life. The moon may diffuse poison through her rays, and snow emits fire. The aquatic creature may shun water, and spiritual enlightenment may fail to eradicate error, but in no case will you turn hostile to Rama. Those in this world who allege the plot may contrive with your connivency shall never attain happiness or salvation even in a dream." So saying, Mother Kaushalya clasped Bharta to her bosom. Milk began to flow from her breast and her eyes filled with tears. In this way they squared away the whole night, lamenting in profusion. The sage Vamadeva and Vashishta then came and summoned all the ministers and the elite of the city. Vashishta admonished Bharta in many ways, speaking to him words of the wisdom appropriate to the occasion. "Have courage in your heart, dear son, and do not what is occasion demand today. Do what the occasion demand today." Hearing this accepted command, Bharta rose and asked everything to got ready. He had the king's body washed in accordance with the Vedic rites and caused a most splendid funeral pyre to be prepared to him. Clasping the feet of Mother, Bharta prevented him from ascending the funeral pyre. They all stayed behind in the hope of the seeing Shri Rama. There arrived many lords of the sandalwoods and aloes, and there were some excellent aromatic herbs of untold varieties. The pile was raised in an artistic way on the bank of the Saryu river and looked like a lovely ladder reaching to the heaven. In this way, all the rites of the cremations were gone through, and then the funeral party bathed with due ceremony and offered a handful of water and sesame seed to the departed soul. After ascertaining the view of all the Smriti texts, the Vedas and the Puranas, Bharta performed the ceremony of the Dasagrata. Whatever order the great sage Vashishta gave on the particular point, Bharta carried out all them in the thousandth phase. He bestowed all sorts of gifts and attaining purity. He gave away cows, horses, elephants, and the conveyance of the various sorts, and even so thrones, ornaments, and the costume, food, grain, land, money, and the houses. And the Brahmans had all their desires fulfilled on receiving them. Whatever rites Bharata performed for the benefit of his fathers in the other worlds were more than 100,000 tons could take count. Then, after determining an auspicious day, the great sage Vashishta came and summoned all the ministers as well as the elite of the city. They all repaired to the council chambers and sat there. The two brothers Bharata and Chaturanga were also sent for. Vashishta seated Bharata by his sides and spoke to him words full of wisdom and piety. First of all, great sage repeated the whole story of the Kaikai willy doing and paid his tribute to the vow of piety and the fruitfulness of the king Dasharatha, who remained true to his love even as the cost of his life. And as the great hermit spoke of the Shri Rama's virtue, amiability, and the kind dispositions, tears came to his eyes and the thrill ran through his body. Again, when he extolled the affection that Lakshmana and the Sita bore towards Rama, the enlightened sage was overwhelmed with grief and emotion. "Listen, Bharta, formidable is the fact, the Lord of sorrow, sage sorrowfully explained. Loss and gain, life and death, glory and fame, all these lies in the hands of the Providence. Now, arguing thus, whom should we blame and with whom should we be angry without any cause? Ponder in your heart, my son, the king Dasharatha is no worth grieving for. Pitiable is the Brahman who is ignorant of the Vedas and who has abandoned his own duty and is engrossed in the pleasure of the sense. Pitiable is the king who has not knowledge of the politely and who does not love his people as his own life. Pitiable is the Vaishya, the member of the trading class who is niggardly through riches and who is not perfect in hospitality nor in devotion to the Lord Shiva. Pitiable is the Shudra, the member of the laboring of the artisan class who is disrespectful towards the Brahmans, loquacious and proud of his knowledge and love to be honored. Pitiable again the woman who deceives her husband in crooked and the quarrelsome and follow her own will. Pitiable is the religious students who break his vows and obey not the order of his preceptor. Yea, pitiable is the householders who out of the ignorance forsake the path of duty, and pitiable the recluse who is attached to the words that lack discretion and the dissipation. Pitiable is the anthroid who given up painless and developed a liking of the luxuries. Pitiable the backbiter who is angry without cause and the enemy of his own parents, preceptor and brothers. Pitiable is every way is he who harms others, cherished his own body and exceedingly heartless. And pitiable in every respect is he who is not sincerely devoted to Shri Hari. The Lord of Kaushala is not worth grieving for it. The glory being manifested through all the 14 spheres. There never was, nor is, nor shall be hereafter the monarchs like your father Bharta, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Indra, the Lord of Celestial and the guardian of the quarter, all sing praises of the king Dasharatha. And will your child who can glorify him, who begot such pious sons as Rama, Lakshmana, Shatrugna, and yourself. The king was blessed in every way. It is no use mourning for him, hearing and realizing this sorrow no more, and reverently obey the king's commands. The king has bestowed the kingship on you. It behoves you, therefore, to redeem the words of your fathers, who abandoned Rama for the sake of his words and quitted his body in his anguish of separation from Rama. The king did not love his own life as he did his words. Therefore, dear son, redeem your fathers or reverently obey the king's commands. This will do you good in every way. Parashurama executed the commands of his fathers and killed his own mother. The whole world will bear testimony to this fact. Yayati since Peru exchanged his own youth for the old age of his father and incurred no sin to blame because he did in obedience of his father's command. Those who cherish their father's words, minding not whether it is reasonable or otherwise, attain happiness and fair renown, and dwell in the abode of Indra, the Lord of the immortals. Therefore, you must redeem the king's words, cherish your objects, and cease to grieve. The king is in heaven, will derive solace, while you will earn merits and the good fame, and shall incur no blame. It is well known in the Vedas and has the sanctions to all that the crown goes to him on whom the Father bestowed it. Therefore, rule the kingdom, feel no remorse, and accept my advice as salutary. Rama and Vidya's daughter Sita will be gratified when they hear of it, and no wise man will call it wrong. Kaushalya and all the other mothers too will be happy in the happiness of the people. Nay, he who will know the supreme affinity between you and Rama will have perfect goodwill towards you. When Rama return home, you may hand over the kingdom to him and serve him with idle affection. The minister submitted with joint palm. You must obey the order of your preceptor. When the Lord of Prabhu come back, you may do what you think fit then. Summoning courage, Kaushalya said, salutary, my son, is your Guru's commands. The same should be respected and obeyed by you as conducive to your good. Cease to grieve, realizing the vicissitudes of the life. The Lord of Prabhu is in the forest and the king is in the heaven, the abode of God. While you, my son, are thus giving way to faint-heartedness, you, my child, are the only support of all men, including your family, subjects, ministers, and all your mothers. Perceiving the antipathy of the gods and the relentlessness of the fate, I adjure you by my life to have courage, reverently obey your Guru command, cherish your subjects, and relieve the affliction of your family. Karta listened to the advice of his preceptor and the minister's appeal, endorsing the same which were a soothing to his heart as sandal paste. He further heard the mother's soft words imbued with the nectar of amiability, affection, and gluelessness. Bharata grew restless when he heard Mother Kaushalya's speech imbued as it was with the nectar of sincerity. His lotus eyes shed tears that watered the fresh shoot of the desolation of his heart. All those who saw his condition at this time forget their own existence. Everyone says Tulsidas reverently extolled him as a perfection of artless love. Joining his lotus palm, Bharata, who was foremost among the strong-minded, took courage and proceeded to give a befitting reply to all the words steeped as it were in the nectar. Was it in for the 30 days recitation? Shri Ramaya Namah, 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 Shri Ramaya Namah.